recording,
Yes,
and it started
I
just
think so.
now. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Someone will be dealing with it.
Exactly, not us.
Not us though. We're just the uppers.
Exactly. We're very fancy people. We have people for this.
Exactly. Okay, so officially, first question. The title of your novel, your first novel, because I know there is a second one, but not in Polish yet.
Not yet.
Ellie Haycock is totally normal. But what does normal even means to Ellie?
Oh man. I mean, I think normal is a journey for Ellie over the course of the story. I think she, like most people, have a vision of what normal means to her. Like normal is like her friends Jack and Brooke, and that's normal. And for her, learning that like what she goes through and how she lives her life is also totally normal, is like part of what she's experienced, is a part of like her journey and growth as a person.
Okay. I think it's an interesting view for the normal world because um, I'm actually a psychology student, so
Oh,
I have thoughts in my mind,
I love this. Bring him on.
and people usually people think that normal is what they are, but
Yeah.
Ellie has this experience with not feeling like she is treated like a normal person who she is. And I have a question. What is even normal a positive term or a negative one?
Hmm.
Or should it be or shouldn't be? Or we just like we should just stop using it because it does not make sense because we are so different. What do you think about it?
I mean, I think that's like a loaded question. Not to like jump ahead to kind of answer a later question, but like growing up when I was reading books, it was always like protagonists were super magical, but they wanted to be this ubiquitous normal. And like, I just want to go to high school and I want to have all my friends and just do all of these normal things. Um, and so I think normal for in my childhood got this bad rap that everyone just wanted to be normal. And then there was like a second wave where everyone was normal, but they wanted to be special. And in both cases, I was like, well, my life is neither normal in the sense of like, here is like normal, but I'm special, nor is it I'm not normal, but also the cool version of not normal. Like, there's like the cool, I'm secretly a superhero version of not normal. And then there's like, I've had 40 surgeries since I was born, not normal. Um, and people make decisions about what that means in terms of normality. And I think you're right. We probably should do away with normal because nobody is normal and achieving it isn't important.
I think it can't it can be a goal, but should it be? Really? Do we want to be normal? Um, I think we just all want to be accepted. And that's the thing.
Ooh.
We use the term normal to say, hey, I really, really just like to be myself and be accepted for it. Um, so I don't think it's positive because I don't think it works positively. I think
Yeah.
it's excluding many people. I have experience with being autistic, so
Mm.
normality is not
Oh
my
yeah.
thing. Not at all.
No.
And
And I was gonna say, I think what you're saying about it's not normal, it's about being accepted. I think that's the crux of it, right? Like
yeah,
you want to feel accepted. We've just branded accepted as like normal, but
exactly.
that's really what we want.
Exactly. But I think there are spaces when you can be uh, not totally normal and be accepted. And
Yeah.
that's the goal for me, not being normal, but being um, in a place, in the good place, in the safe space for me.
Yes.
Um, Talking about safe space, I
Yes.
see books behind you. I see your book here.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you about your job because it sounds like a dream. You're a professional bookworm. It's how you
Yep.
say it. And I kind of am too, but
Yeah.
not as you. I mean, you're living in LA. I am living in Poland. We're having different experience. Can you tell me more about it? Because it sounds so great.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. And here's the big difference between you getting to be a professional bookworm and me getting to be a professional bookworm is that I am reading books for like somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like in terms of like, I like these books and these books are great, but ultimately I'm reading them to make a recommendation to Reese so that she will like the book. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm like, this is going to be her taste. It could be my taste, it might not be. Well, I'm guessing you get to read books that you're just like, this is for me, and this is what I like. And people are like looking to me for what I like.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's a little like, it's great and you get to read a lot, but it's also like, these aren't always the things that I want to read.
Okay, so it's like doing the shopping with your friends, and they're in the changing room, and they're asking you, "Do I look good in it?" And you're saying, "Yeah, like it suits you," and they're like, "Okay, but is it pretty?" And you're like, "It suits you."
Exactly. You're like, would I wear it? Maybe not, but it looks good on you.
Yeah, keep going.
Keep going.
And you're reading a lot, like a lot.
Yeah. I
Uh,
read,
mhm.
I don't know, I think this week I looked at 10 different books. So I think I read like over a couple hundred page, like over 500 pages this week. Did I finish a book? No, I did not. Did I look at a lot of books? Yes, I did.
Wow, it sounds like my neurodivergency, but in a job, like
Yeah.
if my brain would be doing the job, it would be just like yours, just starting books, not finishing it, being okay with it.
Yeah.
So you're reading a lot. You said that. We agree. But how reading so many books helped you with creating your own?
I mean, I definitely think writing, like one of the like fastest ways to like up your writing game is to read, just because you're going to look at things and be like, oh, that was a really cool way and how they said that, or how they like communicated this feeling, got this idea across. Or I think there was a really great thread growing around recently about like voice and like developing what your voice is as a writer. And I think one of the easiest ways to do that is to like read people who are quote unquote voicey, um, and figure out how do they do that and how can you create that vibe in your own work. So it's kind of like been 8 years almost of a mini master class every week of like, oh, here's what worked and what made me keep reading. Here's what didn't work and why I stopped. Here's how this book pulled me in and like did this. And then you sort of start trying to be like, can I reverse engineer that into my own work? Sometimes I try to, and I'm like, yeah, I succeeded in that. And sometimes I'm like, we missed that mark. Try again.
Um, I'd say it's when you want to be a writer, you should be a bookworm. I mean, you have to just love it, love it, love it, love it.
Yes.
Just not only tell stories, but to hold them. Do you know what I mean? Just every story has its meaning, or let's say every story has its meaning.
Yeah.
Not always so smart or needed, but has.
But you know, everyone can write a book. Should everyone? We're not here to pass that judgment.
Exactly. But we can learn, and we can
Hmm.
learn from, of course, people who succeeded, but also people who failed. And that's great.
Yeah, and I think in the beginning it's much easier to look at books where you don't like you aren't involved, like you aren't loving them. It's a lot easier to pick out what they do wrong when you first start out. And then as you move through, like when you start reading things that you really, really love, it then can become easier to say, what work, why did I love this? And how do I like pull out what they did to make me love it?
Exactly.
Which is why you need to be a bookworm. So you have that like entire back catalog to like pull from.
Exactly. Um, about the books, uh, when I have these author meetings, every time I get this question, and I'm just really bored with it. But I think people just really like to know. People are asking me, how similar am I to my main character? And you know it, you've been in many interviews, they always ask you this, but I will too, because I'm basic.
Okay, so am I. I love my pumpkin spice latte, my Aperol spritzes.
Oh my God, you're
Basic.
so American.
Yeah, I feel like this is very American basics. So whatever the Polish version of that is, count me as the basic. Um, I mean, I had this question recently on like an Instagram, like open question, and I like started to be like, I'm different than Ellie. And then I like started going through it and I was like, well, am I? Um,
The
so like the biggest,
thinkers.
right, is this play about me? Um, so obvious, like the biggest difference is that Ellie has a mom who is a mommy blogger, and that was not my mom. And that like is a big, right? Like I'm like, yes, thanks, mom. Thank you for that. Uh, and that is like arguably the biggest difference, which like sets up Ellie to have it kind of puts it turns up the volume on a lot of her emotions and a lot of emotions that like yes these were my emotions but it like concentrates them and puts them in a bigger puts the magnifying glass on them so that they feel bigger, more consequential, and just more. But Ellie is essentially maybe a mini version of me. Sure, let's go with that.
That's great. I think it's a thing about own voice. Sometimes you just can't really separate your own experience with the experience of the person you're writing about based on your own. It's really connected, like twins or just siblings. Maybe
Yeah, well, and
your
it's
siblings, not the same person, but she can be your little sister, but
yes.
does not exist.
And it's so like I think the great thing about like own voices and some of the like I know that's an outdated term or whatever, but like the struggle of it all is that like you want a hyper specific narrative. You know, you want a narrative that feels like this is real and this is different. And like that's why like there's Ellie, but then you also have Caitlin who has like the same disability, but a different presentation of like if it wasn't just me and like this is from my experience, it would be really hard to sort of have that same hyper specificity to it and not just be like, here is the general idea of what it means to be visibly disabled in America, you know, wavy fingers. And so I think that yeah, I think there is a lot more crossover when you're writing like sort of an own voices story into your own personal experience, just because you can then be like, no, here is the hyper realistic version of this world.
I like this term because it's so true. The thing I really liked about your work is that this book is just really, I feel like I've had a great conversation with Ellie, and
Yeah.
she was really open about herself to me. Um, yeah, we've got questions about it, so
Yeah,
maybe we will not be so fast about all the stuff because
yeah,
I want to ask you something fun before
yeah.
the unfun questions.
Before we
Because
rip the Band-Aid off.
we've got those too. Okay, so we've talked about Ellie, about books, about you, and now just like let's make cake from all these things.
Yeah.
What would Ellie, sorry, Ellie is my name, so it's
Oh,
just really
you're like, this is weird.
this is weird. Am I asking about myself? Weird. Okay. What would Ellie read if she, if she was living in our world?
Oh my gosh.
Except comics. We know
Yeah,
it.
she would not read comics. She would be like, I tried so hard, guys. I can't get into these. Poor Ellie. I mean, I feel like she would read again, like just to rip the band-aid off of my own hospital reading experience. I feel like she would read those fantasy novels from like the late 80s, 90s that were like this thick, and you could have like nine of them in a series. Like, I feel like she's probably reading every Timothy Zahn novel that he did in the Star Wars universe that are no longer canon, but sort of are now. Some of it is canon. We don't know anymore. Disney, what are you doing? Um, so I feel like she would read that. I feel like she would get into the romantasy,
Oh
like in the
yeah,
current
she
market.
definitely would.
She would definitely be that. How basic would she be with like the ACOTAR girlies or anything? I feel like she'd be like, okay, yes, but have you heard about this hyper specific weird little book that I've read?
I think she will be like there are Akotar girls, of course, and she's the weird one. I mean,
Yeah,
she's the geek in there.
like she's probably the one being like, okay, yes, fair is cool, but have you heard about Nesta? And they'd be like, why are you defending
Exactly.
her?
Exactly. She's not like the other girls.
She's
She's
not,
yes,
she would be like, yes,
exactly.
very much. I'm not like other girls. I'm a cool girl.
Exactly. She is. She's sassy. I love her. So, I'm assuming your favorite genre is how you say it, genre, is fantasy.
It is one of my big genres, fantasy and romance. So I am living for this romantasy
Yeah,
boom
the topic
moment.
is getting big. In Poland, it's the trend is not so. No, we have this trend, but in America, it's on a different level.
Oh
I've
yeah.
heard about uh, fourth wing in there.
Yep.
You're crazy.
Yes, it's wild to sort of see the rise of Fourth Wing, and like I'm like, wow, all the new girls coming into my fantasy space, and I'm like, okay, let me hide all the weird books that I grew up on from you because we're not ready for that yet.
I think they will get weird, but give them some time. Give them some
Yeah,
time. Show them dragons, then fairies, then I don't know, Star Wars.
exactly. I'll be like, we'll lead them down the path. It'll be fine. Don't worry, just keep reading.
Don't worry, girls, we've been there.
Yeah, we survived. Can't you?
Exactly. And that's about my next question. Um, Writing your with your own voice is deeply personal. I know it, you know it, we know it. But is reading reviews so personal? And how do you like you said, how have you survived it?
Have I? It's a question. I mean, I think every newbie author goes through that point where they're like, I can read reviews. I'm strong. I can handle this. And then like you hit a point and you read one that's like just like eviscerating to your work and you're like, oh, nope, I am baby. I can't do this. I have to go. I'm gonna go like lay on the floor and maybe cry for a minute. I went to a space I shouldn't have done. You know, um, definitely did that, lived that moment.
That,
Uh,
that's so me, so me.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely a time where I just like I'll text my friends and be like, I did a bad thing. I went on Goodreads, and they're just like, why do you do this to yourself? Why do you do this to yourself? This was not a good idea. And I was like, I know. In my defense. Um, I mean, I highly suggest having a good group of friends around you to be like, one, that was a dumb decision. Two, whatever you read is wrong. You're perfectly fine. You did good, kid. Uh, but honestly, it's also like I think, and maybe you've experienced this too, of like when you become an author, like on the way to like putting out your book, there's that little voice in your head that's like your inner critic that's like, you can't do this, it's fine. And you like learn to shut that up. And then you get like people, you read these like negative reviews, and suddenly that inner critic has like a new partner. And that partner just like sits on your shoulder and is like, and you're like, okay, I'm going to write it this way now to appease the partner of my inner critic who is apparently louder than all the people who loved the book. And some of my friends try to remind me you should value all the good reviews as much, if not more, than the bad reviews. And I am not very good at following that advice, even though that's brilliant advice. Um, so yeah, I think I lost my way a little bit, I think, in writing my second book because I was listening too much to those critics. And it was hard. It was a book two. They say book two is hell. Uh, they're
It
not
is.
wrong. It's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to write book two. I managed to get through it. I'm on the other side. And you know what? I just blocked Goodreads from every device I had.
And that's how you handle it, girls.
Exactly. And that's it. The handle is you avoid. You do not give your like hind brain the opportunity to say, I can handle it. I'm feeling super great about myself today. Because man, they love to say, no, you can't.
Yeah, it's like your toxic ex. You know, they have something to tell about you, but do you want to hear it? Not exactly.
And you like, and you can't argue with them. Like they'll say something and you'll be like, okay, that's actually not accurate to the book. And then you're like, at least for me, I'm like, did I put that in the book? Is that clear in the book? Do I need to make that clearer? Um, and so then my go-to moment is to always be like, oh, I was not good enough writer for this. And then I'm like, what are you kidding? I was a great writer for this.
That's right. That's right. And that's about own voice. Nobody else can write your voice. So it's
Yeah.
great that you did, even if sometimes reviews can be harsh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Mm, we know that we just should block Goodreads for good. Uh, and now we want to know something more about terms. I did my research. I study psychology. Have I said, have I told you before?
I love this. I was always more of a sociology person, so I love when people are like, I studied the brain, and I'm like, I avoid my brain and feelings like the plague. So tell me about myself.
Yeah, I hate sociology. Sorry. I want to be deeply in someone's brain and know about their traumas and etc. That's what I like.
See, and I'm like, how do we as a community think?
Community, guys.
Yeah,
Community
community,
space.
mores, norms, values. Anyway, we could go off on a whole big tangent about social sciences.
Yeah, but actually, that connects with my next question.
Yeah.
Um, some people, both disabled and not disabled, it's a correct term in English.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, because in Polish we use like with disability or
Mm.
without disability, like to separate person from the disability. But I guess you don't. So okay, refer to disability as a different ability. How do you feel about this term?
Oh man, ugh. So terminology is a big conversation in the US.
It is in Poland too.
I'm sure it's in Poland. I mean, I feel like everyone is. I I'm a person who's just like, you could just say disabled. That's okay. It doesn't have to be a bad word. Um, I don't really care for it when people say differently abled or special needs or handy capable is also I know people get real creative. I'm like, y'all really want to be writers, don't you? Um,
Wow, that's so poetic.
right? So poetic. It's not. It's but so yeah, I prefer the term just disabled. I know that like sort of there is also a movement in the United States to they call it first person language, which is like person with a disability. Um I'm not it's like one of those things that I'm just like you could just say disabled. That's what I am. It's fine. But it has a lot of like stigma for a lot of people. And so I get it, but I'm also just like, listen to people and how they refer to themselves as, but please stop using all the different words.
Yeah, that's exactly my opinion. I mean, I don't really feel disabled. Um, Maybe because I know that I am autistic for a really short time. Like after I've graduated, actually, I've had my papers done. So I lived with my different abilities for my whole life. But I guess the experience is really different. It depends on many factors.
Yeah.
Um, so we should it's like pronouns, just listen, just stay
Exactly.
open-minded um, about being open-minded. You see how I
I know.
connected.
I'm like, keep going. Like, oh, I see that. Switch into the next question.
Only a professional yapper could do that, and I am the one. Okay. I didn't remember what I was saying, but Gwen, uh,
Yeah.
Ellie's mother, is
Oh, Gwen.
oh, she's the topic. She's doing all the parenting part of the book, the part that's really for me it was emotionally hard experience to read about it because I was like, why are you so blind to your child's emotion? But I'm
Yep.
gonna be professional. So the question is, how does Gwen violate Ellie's privacy, and what she should not do that she does?
I mean, left, right, and center violation. Um, and I think it's both and. I think one of the struggles of the book that Ellie tries to parse through as a 16-year-old whose frontal lobe is not fully developed and all those things is that like, her mom has faced some of the same stigmas that she's faced, but that doesn't what Ellie eventually comes to understand is that that doesn't give her mom a right to continually violate Ellie's privacy,
Exactly.
to talk about the surgeries that Ellie has, to put that on the internet, to put photos of Ellie in surgery or post-surgery or at doctor's offices, to talk about the surgeries that she's had or the physicians that they like come up against. You know, I think that is some of the most like personal moments of a person's life, and to not be able to control who knows that. You know, I think there's like there's a scene at the very beginning of the book where the nurse is like, I loved your blog. And Ellie is just like, I want to die. I want
Exactly.
to go
I,
home.
I'm still feeling it. I'm
Yeah.
feeling it.
And her mom is like, oh my gosh. And like, you know, and I think then there becomes all of this guilt around it of like, well, we're helping people and don't you want to help people? You know, it, it, it becomes a thing for Gwen to feel better about the situation she's in. But it also, she can't, but because it makes her feel better, she can't see what it's actually doing to her daughter and her relationship and their
Exactly.
relationship. And
Exactly. And the thing is, I think you should not help people when you can't help yourself or the people you love at the first place. Um,
yeah,
it always should be you and your needs on the first place. And that's the thing that was most irritating for me, that, gosh, woman.
go. I mean, the best of it, the worst things are done with the best of intentions, and that is Gwen
Exactly.
T. Um, yeah. Oh,
And
I know. So much of it was just like a cringe moment. And like, and I think all of those things make out like the idea of all the blog posts that were included were like these are the things that weigh on Ellie the most. Like if you were to ask like the top 5 things that she hates the most, it these are all the things that make her feel guilty about her own life, right? Like she lost her mom her job, she was born, she did all of these things, like all of these things ultimately are her fault for like simply existing, and her mom would never even see it that. Whether or not that comes through in the book, I don't know. You're like nodding, I'm like, ooh, and I'm like, oh no. Um, so yeah, it's hard. And I think I was like, at first I was like, does this still happen? And then I ended up on like Moms of Disabled Kid TikTok, and I was like, oh God, it still happens. Like,
no,
and it's like
Diva, don't go
it's
there.
it's so I would like get them and I would just like scroll through the comments, and like anytime Gwen needed to be like this, you know, I would just go like scroll through comments on these videos and be like, we'll pull this comment out and this comment out. And it's always like, you're so brave, such a great mom doing like, and you're just like, what would that be like reading that as like a 16-year-old or something of like, this is what my, you know, that
Mhm.
these people, I think what it sets up is this idea that as a caregiver, you're given empathy, but as the person who is cared for, you're given pity. And that, like, the difference between empathy and pity is like night and day.
Exactly. Wow. Okay. That's really deep for me somehow. I'm just taking it with me.
No, no.
I will use it in my real
Yeah.
life when I will be having conversations with autistic moms, you know.
Oh, yes. I am where, you know, oh, I know those moms.
Uh, it's always a jump scare. So now we have I think we're just we did most of the questions, and the time is almost
Oh,
finishing up.
almost, yeah.
So we have a little break, and I'll send you a
New
new
link.
exactly. And now we're praying, we're manifesting for the whole conversation to record. So thank
Yes.
you, and see you soon.
See you soon.
Record.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I think that's we are good because I'm not a tech guy at all. Not at all. And a book.
Look, every time something happens to my computer, I take it to the Apple store and I'm like, fix it. I don't know what went wrong. Fix it. So
Sometimes I'd like to do the same with my brain, but they don't have this thing in Apple, you know? They
yeah,
can't
they don't have that, and doing that at a hospital is dangerous.
Yeah, recently I've learned about lobotomy in my studies.
Yeah.
Crazy thing to experience, I'd say.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah. Why? So it's like, no, brain is good. It's fine.
I like my brain. Thank you.
Mhm.
Keep your
I like
dirty hands
both
away from
sides of
it.
my brain talking to each other.
um, sorry, I'm having this feeling that I need to cough, but I can't.
Oh,
So
no. Oh,
someone will see it when they will doing things with the video I don't know about, and they
oh,
will
yeah.
be like, "Oh wow, that's so chaotic." It is, and it's okay.
It's okay. Bodily functions happen.
This okay. Back on the track. So, with what have we talked about? Okay. Um, we know Ellie has some cringe moments with especially her mom, and some sad moments with especially her mom. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry,
No,
Gretchen.
no.
You're not a bad person, but you did many unpleasant things, you know, and it's your karma.
Yeah.
But do you find yourself in situation like this, in situations like this, that people ask you personal questions about your experience, and they make you uncomfortable, and you're cringing about them, and it's like, oh, why would you ask me that? It's uncomfortable, you know, guy. I haven't I even wouldn't think about asking you such a thing. It's so personal, but somehow um you don't think it's personal because it's me, and well, it's weird. Do you have it? Do you have
Oh,
situation
yeah.
like this?
People love to ask like the question of like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, what happened? And you're just like, well, great. Here we go. And it's kind of changed throughout my life of how I've answered it. And this was like a very interesting conversation with my mom of like when I was a kid, I used to like be like, ask my mom. And I was like, I don't want to talk about any of this. Um, and then I think there also got to a point where I would like then be like, oh, you want to know? I am now going to give you the very medical like overshare. And you could just watch their eyes go like, that's not what I asked for. That's not what I wanted. And you're like, you asked. Here we go. Um, Anymore, it doesn't happen as much anymore because I'm meeting less new people. And I think now people realize, oh, maybe that's not a great question to ask someone you just met. But yeah, it's always awkward. It's like, oh, you want to know what happened to me? Ooh, we're not that kind of friendly yet. Like, this is really personal. And so usually I'll just defer and just be like, oh, it's genetic, non-hereditary. Good luck. Um, because sometimes the question feels more about like them, of they want to know almost like how can I avoid this kind of a thing, or like that's what like it feels like underneath. I spent a lot of time like thinking about like what is the underneath question that people want when they ask you what's wrong with you? And in my head, I'm like, are they just kind of secretly trying to be like, how do I avoid passing this on or getting it myself or like any number of things? Which is maybe like not as generous with other people, like, but like I was like, why ask that? Like what is the purpose of asking that you need to know other than to be like, oh, okay, this is not something I need to like get tested for if I ever decide to have kids or something. Again, not a very generous thought toward other people, but I was like, what is this point? What is the point to like ask what is wrong with you?
Exactly.
Also, to assume something is wrong with me. How rude.
I mean, um, V is not for vicious. You don't have to be.
Exactly.
Okay, so I hate it, because sometimes I'm
Yeah.
trying to be positive about it. And I'm like, people just want to educate themselves. They're trying to be open-minded. They
Sure.
are good. Um, Sometimes they have other ideas and they're trying to be rude actually. Um,
Yeah.
but we don't talk about rude people. Let them be rude in those circles. We're not there, we're here, and we're
Yeah.
having a great time.
Exactly.
But when someone wants to actually educate themselves, um, but don't want to be like that, don't want to
Sure.
be
Or
intrusive, don't want to be rude somehow, because it's always rude. Like when you're asking deeply personal questions to your new friend, to someone you've just met, it's weird. Don't do it. But
yeah.
how can you gain this information and maybe be a better person, be more educated, be more open-minded in your future?
I mean, I think oh, now here I go. Um,
Bless you.
exactly. I'm like, well, I think even in the book, it's kind of modeled this way of like you wait for them to open up to you. Like, unfortunately, in some of these instances, it is a waiting game. It's a game of like, are you a friend who is trustworthy enough? And you do that by showing up for them and being there for them no matter sort of what goes on in their lives. And then they can like tell you something. There's always the way of like, if you hear like a piece of information, you can always Google, but Google is always a dangerous place of like, are you going to land on the right page? Are you going to land, whatever? So like take anything you Google with a grain of salt, in my opinion. And sort of wait for that person to like confirm things or talk or feel comfortable enough talking with them, talking to you about what's going on in their like medical lives. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's like learning any deep secret about a person, right? Like you have to be worthy of that and
Mhm.
respect the fact that like that worthiness and the proof of your worthiness aren't going to come from a single meeting and may not come in two meetings or three meetings, like that's a piece of information. It's like, I don't know. And if you want to like be considerate of like, oh, I don't know if they need like some kind of accessibility need or something, you can ask in like a roundabout, like, because sometimes you can ask in a roundabout way of like, hey, we're going out to this place. Does it need to be is there any accessibility needs that I should be aware of? Like sometimes of like, oh, I know this might be an issue. If it is, I'm thinking about you. But like you're not like trying to make assumptions. You're like trying to include them and make sure you're doing something good for them. And you're not also butting into their lives to be like, can you tell me about all the surgeries you've had? Tell me about how your genetics don't work.
Knock, knock. Tell me about your problems. Sir, I don't know
Exactly.
you. Who are you?
Yeah.
Okay, and I have even a different idea. They should just buy your book, give you money, just pay for the information, and you get
Exactly.
it. And that's we're doing the circle to the own voice moment, because it's so great that you have your voice and you put it in you you well that's that's difficult. You put put it in literature because we need it.
Yeah.
So refreshing to read about it, to experience this experience with your words, because I know they are right, because it's you, it's your experience. And that's why I depend on you. You're just like my educator. I'm like, Ellie, yes, yes, tell me about it. And I'm not intrusive. I'm just curious. And that's the
Yeah.
difference, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're here in the representation moment, love this one. Representation is I mean, um you can put many things under the representation word.
Yeah.
It's queer representation, neurodivergency representation, people of color representation, and we have Ellie. And Ellie is a sassy girl representation, I'd say. We need
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Ellie has I like to describe the book of like if it sounds like sarcasm or if it sounds mean, it's probably sarcasm.
Exactly. And that's
Like,
Ellie. And that's needed
yeah.
in literature. But
I
also, mhm.
No, I was gonna say that was like literally some of the only ways that I got through some of my childhood was like, nope, we're gonna have sarcasm and coffee.
Coping mechanisms.
Exactly.
That she's also disabled. Um,
Hmm.
and uh, I don't know many books with visible representation. I know your second book is in the dedication. You dedicate your
Yeah.
second book for all the visibly disabled girls. And that's great. That's really cute. I
Yeah.
had my tears moment with it because he was like, "Oh, you did it! Yes, yes, Miss Girl." But how can readers who are just like me, who don't have
Yep.
the exact experience, hard words, um, how can they separate bet wait, because there's a word, differentiate.
Oh yeah. No, but it's a hard word.
It's a hard word, but how can, okay, I'll try again.
Yeah.
But it's really hard with Polish accent, you know? How can readers differentiate between good and poor representation when they don't have a personal experience with the topic, like with
Yeah.
Ellie and me?
Um, oh man. I mean, that's like the crux of the problem, right? I
Mm,
think the first port of call, the first idea is like, is it written by somebody who has that same experience? And if it is, that is kind of like a check mark one.
mm-hmm,
I think that can be really hard to do in this like world. Check mark two would be like in the like disabled online community and then the like disabled bookish spaces, what do they say about the book? So sometimes it's like, yes, this is technically from a person's POV who has it, but in the grand scheme, it's my sociology love coming out. In the grand scheme of like the community, how does the community view the representation? Which is, up and down depending. And so that's like a second check mark you can do. And I think that check mark, that second block of like, what does the community say about things? I think that becomes essential, especially when evaluating books that are not written by disabled people that include disabled characters. Is what is the community saying about it? And specifically, what are the communities who are represented in the book saying about it? Because I think there can be a tendency for people to identify with a book that is not necessarily their disability, but it makes them feel seen on that journey. But the community that is represented is saying, this is bad representation for us. And so you then have this tension of like it's helpful to some, it's hurtful to the group it's about. What do we do with it? And I think that is like an interesting conversation and a complex conversation to parse through that I'm not sure
You can
the
handle
internet
yourself.
yeah, I'm like I don't necessarily like I'm not here to be like judgment comes down here. And I'm not sure the internet and all of its nuance or lack thereof is ready to sort of have how do we have that conversation? Because that is a very like nuanced, detailed, highly specific book by book conversation. And I don't even have an answer. I wish I did in my infinite lack of wisdom.
That's great. We love shades of gray because that's who we are. The experience is really different. Opinions are really, really divergent, usually.
Hmm.
And that's because the topic is very personal, and that's how we take it, and that's how we speak about it. And that's so great. And there
Yeah.
are so many voices that need to be heard in the future
Yeah.
now. I really feel the lack of the representation. I think we should just, as a writer, I have um, this this idea of me putting neurodivergent or disabled characters in every book, in every media I will create, because I've only created one at this point, but that's okay. I have my time.
Yeah.
Because
You did it once. That means you could do it again.
exactly, because we don't have enough of it. But that's my question. Do you also think it's the representation is just not there yet? There's a road to come for it. And do you have any, I don't know, recommendations of media, not exactly books?
Sure. Oh my gosh. I think you've hit the proverbial nail on the head. I think specifically in disabled representation in books especially, we are very much in its infancy and very much just trying to create what does that canon look like. Um a lot of the sort of classics of the representation of disabled people are not great for actually disabled people. Um, so, trying to like being a part of those like sort of first people through the door and what is that representation going to look like in the future is both like really exciting and also like really exhausting because you are the one doing all of the education and like, okay, here we go. We're gonna have a hard conversation now. Now we get to have this, and I just want to sit here and write my little books, but now I also have to be like educator on the side. Um, as far as like books, other like media go, I mean, it can be really hard. I'm like trying to like, you even gave me these questions and I was like, oh, I'm ready for this. Am I though? Um, so like I did not look up if these are in Polish, if these have been translated. But Where You See Yourself by Claire Forrest is really great. Um, Time
Mhm.
and Time Again by Chatham Greenfield. There is all of Hannah Bonham Young's stuff is really, really great. Um, like those are like other books that I would say like I think Ellie is in conversation with. Um, I think I'm excited to see all of the sort of representation coming to fantasy, and what that can bring. So I know there's a book coming out this spring called Behooved, which is about a girl who has a chronic illness. Um, and she lives in a fantasy world and she accidentally turns her husband into a horse on their wedding night. And so it's but it's sort of about
Every disabled person's experience, just you know, it happens sometimes.
Yeah. How do you deal with the fact that like, you're chronically ill and oops, I turned my husband into a horse. Totally normal.
You're like, oh no, another one? No, not this time.
John, what do the doctors say? What is the prescription for this?
And someone's like, what's wrong with you? And you're hiding the horse behind the door.
Yeah, you're like, where would you like me to start? Um,
Ask,
so
ask my horse, I mean, my husband.
no, this is my emotional support husband.
Sorry, ma'am, you can't take your horse with you to the hospital. That's sir, it's my husband.
Exactly. I have to go here.
And,
So I
and they
think
are
those
like, oh, she's bad. Oh, there's
so
something
yeah.
wrong with.
So those are like some books that I would say, as far as like TV goes, it can be like really hit and miss because like there's a huge tendency to like make disabled people played by non-disabled people. And what
Yeah.
does that say? And there are a whole bunch of like, again, you could have a really nuanced conversation of like, well, some people can't, like, some disabilities can't be portrayed that way. And then I would be like, well, are there disabled people behind the scenes? If there are, that could be a way to solve representation as well. Um,
We have
so yeah,
Nesta. I mean, Nesta from
Nessa?
the
Yeah.
Wickets. Nessa.
Nessa, yeah.
Yes,
So like also really great. Also, the first time that character was actually played by a person in a wheelchair. Like, progress over perfection.
exactly. No, it's the only media actually I can think about now, which is um not very pleasant and shows a lot. Um, think about it. Maybe you'll find something else.
Yeah.
And I'm not bothering you with finding any other titles anymore
Yeah.
because I know it's hard. It's like people ask you about your favorite book, and you're like, whoa, whoa, I don't know this thing about myself.
Yeah, it's like what am I about to say about myself if I say this is my favorite book?
And do you have your favorite book for different favorite book for different people?
Um,
Do you?
yes,
Or it's just
I
me?
think, like it's one of those, it's like I have a stack of favorite books. Because I think it all depends. I'm a mood reader, so it always depends on like what mood am I in to read. I'm also just like a classic rereader, so I'm always like rereading something at any given moment. But like my favorites are True Biz by Sarah Novak. Also, oh my gosh, a great like disabled book. If you want to learn about deaf culture. So True Biz, Nalini Singh's Branded by Fire, which is like a romance novel. Crown Jewel by Sherwood Smith, which is young adult fantasy written when I was in high school. So we won't say how long ago that was, but
You don't have to
it,
say the year.
yeah, and we're gonna leave it at that. But it's one of my like favorite things or favorite books. Um, Codename Verity is one of my favorite novels to just talk about like point of view. Like if you ever want to learn to write an unreliable narrator that you can't help but fall in love with and believe, like Codename Verity is that novel. Um, will also make you cry your eyes out, but that's okay. A little crying is good for the soul. Um, so yeah, that's like my stack of like, here you go. And it's all very varied and all over the place, which I feel like is where my reading life lives of like, there's fantasy, there's contemporary, there's adult, there's YA, there's romance.
What do you want? So many
Exactly.
personalities of mine. Now I'm thinking about this one book that is a fantasy, kind of classic, and has a disability representation, and it's Six of Crows
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah,
Kaz. He's
yeah.
like, uh, he
It's
did
a
things for me because he's a badass, and also he's disabled. And I never thought about disability as something wrong or
yeah,
bad or anything. I think I've always been autistic and open-minded about the topic. But when I've read the book, I was surprised that that was the only book with the main character like this that I could find, and
yeah.
that 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 became my obsession somehow.
Oh,
Creating space, um, creating media or consuming media that has have this representation.
yeah. No, yeah, no, Six of Crows, classic, really great. Like, yeah, I forgot
It's
about
so
that one.
well written. I love it. But
Yeah.
your book is too. I mean, I
Oh,
loved it. I like the sassiness.
yeah.
Fuck. Yeah. It's not coming to the public, but um yeah.
I'm
Sorry.
glad that works in Polish because I was like, I don't know how translation is gonna work.
Yeah,
It's it's
it sounds really great. I think the Polish language is it's so sassy itself that
okay.
it only like when Ellie is like in English, I imagine. I haven't read it the whole thing in English, only some parts uh
Mm.
during my research.
Oh,
And it's really well translated. I think. I don't know what you think about it as an author, but you can't tell because you don't
yeah.
know.
I think it's really cool that it's in another language. It was funny. My brother worked in Poland for a while and he has a lot of Polish friends. And he was like, do you need a translator? Because I can get you a I was like, Ben, they translate it themselves. They have the publisher will do this job. He's like, I can just make sure it's really great. And I was like, it's fine.
But it's so sweet. I mean, yeah, Ben, like let them do the job.
Yeah, I was like, let them do their job. This is what they do.
Exactly. And I'm so glad they did because Polish people they need it.
Yeah.
I believe we need everyone in the whole world, but especially in here, when the topic is still very it's somehow still treated with I'm trying to find the best word, but
Like
um,
taboo. Not sorry.
yes, yes.
Yeah, like it's still like a, ooh, we don't want to talk about this.
Yeah, yeah, we don't talk about it in here. We're just positive and we're all normal. No, no,
Oh
no.
yeah.
Don't
No.
talk about it. Or even they are only seeing the struggle part of the experience. And I even don't know what is worse. But yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
needed. And
It's like you only get the two extremes. It's either like everything is awesome or everything is terrible. And you're like, okay, but just like everybody else, it's kind of a roller coaster.
exactly, exactly. And people just need to understand it. And I think Ellie is doing her job, except being the sassiest girl I've ever read about, probably. Maybe except Lesbian's Guide in Catholic School, because that one is really sassy. Oh my God. um, yeah, but that was a disclaimer. Um, okay, so we only have one question left.
Dun, dun,
Great,
dun. Yeah.
two yappers, and we did it. We made,
Yay.
guys, we made it. Okay, so the question is, the last. Uh, if you were given a magic microphone and could speak only one sentence that everyone on Earth would hear and understand, what would you say?
Gosh, big existential question. I feel like so originally when I was writing things in books and signing them, the thing that I would say that I would write would be it's all totally normal and sort of like an encompassing of like everything you experience is normal. Like this experience we call life, that's normal. And so I feel like that's what I would want to say of like just telling everybody like it's okay. It's all totally normal.
It's beautiful, and I
Yeah.
think it clicks, you know? It's just
Yeah.
like, and you've read Ellie, and so now when I had this conversation with you, but that, by the way, was so charming, and I
So
loved it.
great.
And even though it's next day in here in Poland, in
Oh my
Warsaw,
gosh.
I'm so glad that I'm not speaking, that I'm not sleeping now, because I can speak
Oh,
with you, and that's great, and I love
that's
it,
so
and thank
fun.
you very much.
Yes.
I thought about this question, and I would probably say something
Yeah.
that is not that kind or
Oh,
psychologically correct. I'd say it's something like, "Hi, I'm God, uh, and I exist, and people on the whole earth." In one moment, they would hear this one sentence, and everyone would be like, "Whoa, there's a God. We have the evidence, guys."
I mean, honestly, that's the start of a story. That's the start of a book.
Maybe I should. I should
I'm just
write
saying
a
that's
story.
all you. That's all your idea. So I'm just putting that out there.
um, so yeah, that's it.
It's
And
great.
we did it, and I think it's really great. And I
Yeah.
hope you felt great. I did.
Yeah. This was so much fun. Thank you so much for putting all of this together. We did it. It's your first. It's my first. We did it.
It's not your first. I mean, I've watched
Okay, it's not my first, but like it's my first interview in Poland.
exactly. You're in Warsaw
So
now, so
yeah, I'll be like, here it is. So I hope I sound really great in Polish, however they either dub this or put on the subtitles. So
they did a good job, I believe, because
yeah.
I'm also a sensitivity reader in here, so
Okay.
um, I'm a bad guy, so, because
Love it.
way they don't. I, I say it, and they pay me for it.
Yeah.
So now I can say that they did great, and I'm so glad because this book really deserves it, and you do also. And I'm um, not crossing my fingers. I'm holding my thumbs. How do you say it? I'm
Holding my
wishing
breath.
you best luck
Oh, thank you.
with your second and your third and your fourth and your every other story.
From your lips to the universe's ears.
Yes. Um, yeah, that's it.
All right.
I think
Have a
hmm?
good night. Go sleep.
Good
Sleep
day.
well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think it's so visible that I haven't slept in like for 24 hours
Oh
for now.
gosh.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's
It's
okay.
okay.
I'm a writer. We do this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. But
Mm,
go take a good nap, take a good sleep. This was wonderful.
right. Thank you so much. Now I feel more comfortable with my English, I guess.
Yeah, you
You
were
know,
great.
I don't have anything in common with English except the fact I've learned it for like 5 years in school,
Yeah,
and now
no,
we're here.
now you're here and we did it. And you were great in English.
Great, thank you so much. And also, I wanted to ask you, it's like
Yeah,
it's a disclaimer, it's not in the interview, but you did your studies in movies and in
yes.
arts oh, I don't know this one in English. It's like arts of,
Theater arts. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And how was that? Because I'm really curious, and I don't have this question, but it's for me, okay?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want
yeah.
something for myself.
No, I mean, my theater arts degree, it was great. I feel like I pull so much from it now as like a writer because it was more holistic about like what does theater mean and how is theater like radicalized and how do you change the world with theater? And then my like studies in film and television were like kind of the opposite of that of like I went from very like esoterically thinking about art and theater and moving pictures to like commerciality, which was like how is this like how do you make a story better? And you know, USC is all of the like flash and pomp and circumstance of the film industry at large. And so they were really good counterweights to each other. Um I don't know, like it was great. It was an education in both, and I feel like sometimes the film industry piece was really great, but it was also just buying it was giving it was good to go and get access to a lot of people who are already in the industry to go like, "Oh, you went to the same program that I did. I will help you get a job." And I was like, "Great." But also that's not how this should work.
It's all about just knowing people in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
I know you. I my only experience with LA. I've been to US, but my only experience with LA is watching BoJack Horseman, and I don't think it's a good representation.
I mean, it both is and is not.
It's like
So,
it's a good representation when you keep it in your mind that it's in a Black Mirror.
yes. Yeah. I mean, we don't have people with horse heads walking around, but also, could we?
You know, there's this one book when girl turns her husband.
It just, it's the gift that keeps on giving, comes back around.
Exactly. Thank you so
So,
much. Have a
yeah.
great day. And see you, I hope,
Yes.
when your second book will be published here.
Fingers crossed.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.